The South African Revenue Service has opened up discussions around the modernisation of the country's value-added tax system, and it's set 2028 as a target year for companies to have their systems in place to be able to comply with the pending changes. Modernising the VAT return system will involve a move to e-invoicing, which is said to have already begun in countries like Brazil, Chile and India, as well as economic blocs like the European Union. Well, to discuss these matters further, I'm joined by Shannon Friedman. She's the CEO of VAT Modernisation South Africa. Thank you very much, Shannon, for joining us. So why is it so important for South Africa to be working on the overhauling of the VAT return system?
When it comes to VAT modernisation, basically it's in response to a problem that's faced not just actually by SARS or South Africa on its own, but really the world and other countries where there's VAT framework in place. And really that problem, what it's in response to, is the significant amount of VAT leakage the system is exposed to, despite the fact that that makes up the second highest contributor of revenue for revenue services. And we're not talking small change here either. We're talking billions of rand being lost each year due to the fact that that time and time again goes underreported, either due to inaccuracies or data quality issues, that all add up along the way, or also fraud as well.
Yeah.
And the reason for all of this is because by nature of the VAT return framework, you're reporting VAT on a periodic basis at a very highly summarized level. Now, what that means is that there's a lot of space for things to be hidden or for things to go unreported because they're hiding in those aggregates. Now, by moving to something like VAT modernization and e-invoicing, what you're essentially doing is rather than reporting that on the summarized basis, you require companies to be transmitting their underlying transaction data, so their invoices, their credit notes, etc. And by SARS having access to the actual underlying data, what that means is the whole supply chain becomes a lot more visible from everyone's perspective. And you're actually seeing what these transactions are made up of, making it much more easier for SARS systems to detect things like irregularities, certain inputs that don't have a matching output associated with it, and stuff like that.
Yeah, Shannon, let me come in there and link in what you've just said. So part of the process of achieving this modernized VAT return system is for companies to do what's called e-invoicing. What does that involve? And tell us about how then that they would share that with SARS.
Okay, perfect. So it probably is good to start off by just distinguishing what an e-invoice is and how it differs from how most businesses in South Africa are currently doing their invoices. So essentially what an e-invoice is, it's a digital invoice in a machine-readable or data-based format. So that differs from normal PDF or visual-based invoices, which while are exchanged electronically, it requires a pair of eyes to capture or interpret that data. Now, by switching over to something like e-invoicing, businesses are all transacting or communicating with each other in data format, and that underlying data can then get transmitted to SARS. And because it's in the database format, SARS systems are able to automatically process that, verify that. They might want to cross-check a certain input against an output. You have all those data fields available. And what the beauty is about something like the VAT system is that for every input or every output, there's a corresponding or contra transaction, which puts a nice check in place to make sure everything either balances or that the transactions all balance are in place.
So is this a win-win for both the taxpayer and for SARS?
It most certainly is, okay? So obviously there's the obvious benefits of SARS being able to increase its VAT revenues, close its VAT collection gap. From a compliance perspective, there's also a very great benefit to businesses themselves. Just from the fact that compliant businesses are going to have a much more automated way of doing their VAT returns or submitting their data to SARS, as well as having less issues when it comes to the VAT assessment process, such as less delays when it comes to getting VAT refunds or not being having to face unnecessary audits. Another benefit that businesses will face when adopting e-invoicing is not only actually from the compliance perspective, but actually from an operations or business perspective as well. When you move away from visual document formats to more database formats, it opens up a lot of opportunities in the form of automation, greater process visibility, and that has a lot of effects down the line as well through enhanced CRM procedures where basically people, because businesses are transacting with data, those documents are getting captured automatically instead of manually. It also leads to greater cash flow systems just due to the fact that documents are being managed better and managed more efficiently. It allows businesses to pay their creditors as well as for them to receive from their debtors more on time and more quickly.